of the ways I thought about framing the discussion, and you can tell me if you think this is a good idea or a bad idea, but just this idea that there's a progression of mistakes that build on one another. And I feel like I got to a point of financial literacy in my 40s, finally. Okay. I mean, it took me a long time, but I ended up making all of these mistakes in my early years, my 20s, 30s, leading into my 40s. And I think they're not uncommon mistakes when you look back at it, because they're a function of, when you're young, a function of your parents or the financial operating system that was in existence in your house, wherever you grew up.
Yeah.
Then you go to college and there's a certain set of, or not, you graduate high school and you go into the working world, you go to college, there's a set of financial circumstances there that you're presented with. And then, and you start building on assumptions or ideas that you had learned when you were younger. And if those are false assumptions or bad ideas or limiting beliefs, you're starting to build on these mistakes. And then you get into your 30s and you start earning more money potentially. And so I don't know if that's
mistakes.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a good way of framing this discussion, but it's kind of, when I started thinking back on it, I was like, oh, wow. You can think about your most recent mistake, but when you trace it back, it all kind of lands, for me at least, in my teens, where I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Did you budget when you were in high school? Did you ever think about budgeting? No?
No, but I don't know. I don't think I spent a ton of money in high school, or at least the money I spent.
Yes, you did.
It was very directed, right? It was like,
you bought a car.
I had a car. Yeah, but I knew I wanted a car from the time I was like 13. And that's when I started working, right? I was doing babysitting and odd jobs and stuff. And I was saving for a car. And except for bad habits as a teen, like smoking, where I had to spend money for sure. Maybe fishing lures, right? Things like that. I didn't spend a ton until I got a little older, I think. When you think about like how we spent our summers and stuff. But no, I definitely didn't budget, to answer your question. No budget.
As a portion of your net worth, buying a car had to be like 80% of your net worth, right?
Yes, for my the very nice cars that I bought. You'll remember the first one was, I believe, $100, and that had no floorboards in it. The next one was a big step up. I think Dad had to help me. That might have been $700.
Dude,
what about you? I mean, did you start a saver? Like you started working pretty young, at least summers.
Yeah, I saved money, all with the goal of buying things, and I remember saving up to buy a $600 amp.
Dude, I was so jealous of that amp.
It was huge, and for no reason. Like it was
totally a reason.
18-inch speaker on the bottom, two 10-inch speakers on the top, 150 watt head. I lived in an apartment building. I had no business buying this amp. Like my mother and father would go to eat down in town, and they'd come home. My mother would come up to my room. I can hear you playing all the way down on Main Street.
It's like I barely remember you playing that thing loudly ever.
Oh man, well,
that's because you couldn't.
No, I couldn't really. No,
my amp was like the size of a laptop at that time, maybe a little bigger, right? I had a micro bass, the Peavey.
Yeah.
There was no making that thing loud. It just sounded like ass if you turned it up all the way.
But when you play in a band, like I remember a few times when we all got together and like played at serious like performance level, like then it made sense. It made perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing that could make any of the bands we were in better would be to play louder.
So you couldn't actually hear it.
Proper distortion.
Yeah. But it's funny, when I was thinking back on that, so it was $600 for that. It was like a lot of money for me at the time. Obviously, you said you bought a $700 car. But fast forward to like when I'm in my like late 30s here, I started playing guitar instead of bass. I bought this ridiculous amp. I did it again, like two 10-inch speakers. It was a Peavey, like insane amp for my house. I mean, I had two young kids in this house. So the house behind me here, and I wasn't in a band. I was nothing, man. I was playing in the studio or in the house. And and again, I made the same stupid mistake, right?
Let's talk about why. Cause I bet that's just as important as the what. So you've had all these years to learn, right, from your previous mistakes. Why did you buy? Maybe the answer is different this time. Like, why did you buy such a big amp?
I think we just buy things to make ourselves feel good in the moment. I don't know. There's just a lot of that
Yeah,
consumer culture that is just baked into who we are. I mean, you bought a drone this week,
I
right?
did.
You didn't need a drone. I
No,
mean, and yet you were justifying, well, I can use it for this or that. And I was feeding into that. I was like, oh
you
man,
were totally feeding into it. I actually blame you.
he's going to buy this thing.
I gave you 80-20 odds that day.
No, it started off at like 60-40.
Yeah, I know. I was selling myself short.
Like
I
30
know.
seconds later, it was up to 80-20.
I know myself
I was like,
too
oh,
well.
it's bought.
Yeah, it's basically bought. I had already made the plan.
But why'd you buy that?
Because I can, right? It fits into, pretty discretionary level of spending, given how little of that I tend to do.
Yeah.
I looked at it as an opportunity to do more of something that I liked doing anyway, but I'd only done it at the very much hobbyist level. And I just started thinking like, well, maybe this will turn into something else, right? I like the idea of learning a lot more about videography because it's always been more appealing to me than static photography.
Yeah.
And it's a very different, angle, right? If you will, on the whole thing, the idea of being aerial and taking photos, taking video. So I liked that. No like plan or guarantee that it's going to turn into anything more than a hobby, but it could. Who knows? I don't know. And yeah, I mean, but sure, like when you buy things like that, I think it's a very normal reaction, right? There's a boost when you purchase something that's really nice. I think especially I have found as I've gotten older and earned more and such, it's like, oh, I couldn't have bought this before,
Right,
but now
yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to go buy it. It's going to feel great.